Well, pro-Israel lobbies in the United States have threatened to publicly castigate Democrats if they skip the Israeli Prime Minister's planned speech before Congress. Benjamin Netanyahu's Jewish conservative backers say they will be taking attendance of delegates during the March 3rd speech. Netanyahu has been invited by House Speaker John Boehner to address a joint session. Democrats, though, are angry over the move, which was planned without the knowledge of the government. The White House has already criticized Netanyahu's visit, saying it lacks diplomatic protocol. Vice President Joe Biden has even decided to skip the controversial address. The event is coming just 2 weeks before Israeli elections. As it seems, Netanyahu plans to go ahead with the trip, despite growing criticism both in Israel and the United States. The Israeli Prime Minister says he will address the U.S. Congress to lobby against a nuclear deal with Iran. To discuss that further, and I joined Mr. Sohail Natour, who is a Palestinian writer and journalist, and he's joining us live now from the Lebanese capital, Beirut. Mr. Natour, how do you feel about this entire issue of Netanyahu speaking at the U.S. Congress and the way it seems that everyone's going to be forced almost to attend?
Well, I think if we take the considerations of Mr. Netanyahu to decide to go, even unwillingly by the White House, to address the Congress, we can see two things. On one hand, he is originally against any agreement which allows Iran to be a nuclear state, even if this nuclear state is working on the peaceful uses of the nucleus apparatus. But Israel considers that any capability which empowers any of their enemy, they have to confront it since the beginning and until now. The second, which is also a new factor, is the consideration of the internal election in Israel. Mr. Netanyahu is feeling that his party is losing the original power he had before, and now he thinks that if he repeats the same thing happened before when he addressed the Congress, and he was welcomed with very enthusiasm and given a very special treatment, that will empower him reflectively on the election, and that the majority will be again for him. I think this second part is the main reason that the White House and the Democrats, they don't want to allow him to address, and he is going even blatantly against any diplomatic move, but he is insisting because he considers if he loses this opportunity, there may be a lot of losses in the election after 2 weeks in Israel.
And so, Mr. Natour, if I may just come in here, I also wanted to ask Mr. Natour, what does this say about American sovereignty over its own policies? Because it seems now that Israeli interests and American interests, there seems to be a blurred line between them. They seem to be the same all of a sudden.
I think they are still in the main continuity of the policy against the Arab unity, the Arab capacity to be unified, against the exploitation of the wealth of the Arabs. It will be continuously, but it takes a very different shape this time. I think that the Israelis are exaggerating their power to demonstrate that they are an internal factor inside the Americans, while usually it was considered that the Americans are an internal factor in the Israeli elections. I think that this time Mr. Netanyahu is exaggerating in his power to influence the internal affairs of the Americans. This awkward attitude will help about creating a new schism in the tactique, not in the strategy. We have to be careful to think that they are going to be. I think if he insists on going on to make the address and this, the party, the Democratic Party, will be against him, and the official institution will take care in any movement after the election of the Israelis. That is supposed, if he wins again, that means he's going to have another government and another cabinet. I think the Israelis now are influenced, and a lot of Israelis beginning to speak, say clearly that we don't want any contradiction with the only ally left for us in the international arena. And they are afraid that if Mr. Netanyahu will play it for his own party election benefit, that means that they are going to lose the same ordinary protection completely and blindly by the Americans to the attitude of the Israelis against the Arabs and the Palestinians mainly.
Very well. We'll leave it there at that. But as always, Mr. Natour, we appreciate your insight. That was Mr. Sohail Natour, who was speaking to us live from Beirut.